Yes.
All right.
Oh,
I think
okay.
you just
Yeah,
just been
thanks.
answered. Thank you, CJ. And thank you for joining us as well. Yeah, so basically I'll start again. So basically I want to go, we want to have a discussion about the UN, about the King of the South, and I want to understand about the Sunday law. What is all this about? What is, how can we understand all these things as they all draw together? What are things that we haven't seen? What other things are we supposed to see? So that's what I want to talk about today. And I really would like your participation because I will be asking some questions. Thank you. Oops. How do you turn this now? Oh, this I just click. That's it. So what I want to do, I want to look at the UN, the United Nations, first of all. And there is a reason why I'm bringing us onto this subject, and I'll talk about that later on in the presentation today. What is the purpose of the United Nations and why was it set up? When was it set up and why was it set up? And we know it's to do with the keeping of international peace. Does anybody understand or remember, without looking at your devices, what was the purpose of the United Nations? When and why was it set up? And I'm going to put that out to the brethren out there. Do you remember?
Was it after the Second World War?
Yes, well done, Cedric. Well done. Can you tell us anything else?
Because it was, I mean, war is not a very pleasant thing, and
No.
it
Can you speak up a bit,
wrecks.
Cedric? I can hardly hear you, sorry. Hello? Cedric, can you speak up?
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry,
That's
I
it. I can
said
hardly hear you. Yeah.
wars are not very pleasant things because it affects the country, affects the economy.
Yes.
A lot of people get killed.
Yes.
And I think they wanted to put things in place, laws in place where this um, has can stop or um,
No, go on. You could do it right. Go on.
sorry, my mind's gone
No,
blank.
no, no. Go on. That's quite right. Go on. I'm listening.
Um, laws in place where countries are not fighting against each other,
That's
and
right. That's right. That's correct.
yeah,
Thank you very much, Cedra. And that's exactly what it was. So basically, it was set up in 1945. And actually, in the year 2020, it turned 75 years. It's 75 years in 2020. So it's been around for a while. So as Cedric said, World War II caused enormous destruction. And basically, it left lots of ruins. And that is why part of the United States was established with one main target. So, and that was, like we just said, to have peace among nations around the world and also to prevent future wars. And so they came together and basically when they spoke, part of the United Nations was to prevent war. It was also and they went sort of deeper into things as well. So they looked at human rights, they looked at sustainable development, they wanted to fight inequality and also climate change, which we know when you look on the UN website, they have got an agenda for that. It's called the 2030 agenda. So how would they go about doing this? So how are they? When they come together, what exactly is happening when they go there? So it's a meeting place where all the leaders worldwide can interact. So that's what it was all set up for as well. And so they go there and they discuss all the issues arising among the nations, and they agree on what rules and regulations that all nations can abide by keeping peace and security. Okay, so it's a massive place. We're going to go deeper into that. So there are 17 goals and 169 targets and a roadmap for all the world's countries. So the most vulnerable will be given the most priority. And so in the General Assembly, all countries have one vote and one say. So all are committed to following the Constitution of the United Nations, which is the UN Charter. So if you actually go onto the website, you will see there would have been a UN Charter that all the nations would have had to sign up to. And you can go on there and you can read what the Charter says in your own time, and you'll see who signed it and everything like that. So it's quite an important piece of document there. And so it's all committed to following the Constitution of the United States, which is the UN Charter, the United Nations, which is the UN Charter, and human rights and central topics. So the most powerful part of the UN is essential a Security Council, which is in charge of maintaining peace and security between all the nations. So this particular council, it has 15 members, and 5 of them are permanent, and the other 10 are non-permanent, and they're actually elected. And when they are elected, they sit on that seat for about 2 years. So in our society today, the UN has been criticised for its shortcomings. There are arguments that the organisation needs to change in the future. It is the most important organisation for international cooperation. So I've got to admit that when I do look at the United Nations, I think to myself, what power do they really have? Who controls it? Does anybody, when you think about the United Nations, do you think who really controls the United Nations? So I read something somewhere because I wanted to ask the question. And basically, even though the United Nations is the most powerful and influential international organization in the world, it's supposed to be neutral, and it's supposed to be an impartial organization. Okay. So, but like we said, few feel that the United Nations live up to that ideal. So, yeah, so that's that. Does anybody want any questions or have any questions about that? So anyway, if we look at the most authoritative part of the UN.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
You said United Nations is impartial. What do you mean?
Well, what do you think what do you think impartial means?
I know what it means, but how can it be impartial if it set up these laws? I was just thinking about Israel.
Oh, somebody's going to come in. Well, basically, it has to be impartial. So they all vote together. That's the idea, that they all vote together.
But if they have laws set up, and I'm thinking
it says the UN is supposed to be. The UN is supposed to be a neutral and impartial organization. That's what it's supposed to be. So any laws that are set, it's not just one nation saying that we're going to do this. They all have to vote together.
Yeah.
That's what has to happen. They all have to. So there's nobody particularly in charge of this organization, and whoever's the head of it is always voted in anyway by all the nations.
So if Israel was, am I going too fast? I was just thinking about Israel. If Israel has, they set a law like don't continue to bomb Gaza, and they're still doing it.
Yeah.
So, but it's not impartial, is it? Because it lay down laws, and Israel should obey those laws.
No, exactly, and that's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking the question. When they set up this, I think it was a good idea, right? To all come together to make sure that everybody lives in peace and unity. It's a good idea, and that's why I'm asking now. What power do they really have? Because I said to myself, you see Russia, who thinks, I mean, even Russia is a permanent member in the United Nations, and even though all these things are set up, you have to sort of say to yourself, well, hold on a minute, they've signed the UN Charter to say that they're going to abide by these rules, what the United Nations have set out, and yet they think they can go behind the doors and do what they want. And so they're still going ahead with it anyway. He's like a loose cannon, Putin is, and so is Netanyahu, you can say, and other nations are. They want to take matters into their own hands and do what they want to do anyway. And so, and this is the question I'm asking: what power does the United Nations really have?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
What do they really have? Because if this is what they're supposed to be doing, who's doing it, and why haven't they been stepping in and sorting it out? Is it fear? Sometimes I wondered why it's set up in the first place. It sounds good written on paper, but when push comes to shove, CG, what are they doing?
Exactly. Because Israel's still carrying on.
Yeah.
Doing what she wants to do.
Other countries as well. So and this is why they think that they don't really live up to the ideal of what they're saying, and I agree with some of that somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the UN Secretary General, General Assembly, and Security Council have most of the control of the United Nations. These elements control most of the UN's decisions and operations. However, the UN Charter devolves power across many different bodies, and no one has ultimate control over the UN. So I'd just like to stress about that no one has ultimate control over the UN, and that's something I want you to remember. Right, okay. But if anybody doesn't have any questions, we'll move on to the next slide. Oops. Oh no. Hang on. That's like it's just supposed to go. There we are. So basically, the things that you're seeing on the screen are parts of the United Nations. Okay, these are part of the United Nations, and this is what it looks like. So, number one here, we'll put number one. That's the UN General Assembly. Okay, the UN General Assembly. So what do they do in there? So they resolve non-compulsory recommendations to states or suggestions to the Security Council. They decide on the admission of new members after a proposal that's given by the Security Council. They adopt budgets there as well, and they elect the non-members as well. So this is where all this goes on in here. They locked all the 10 of the non-members people there after their 2 years are up. And all members of the Economic and Social Council, the UN Secretary General, following the proposal by the Security Council. So this is where it says, and the 15 judges of the International Court of Justice. Each country has one vote. So that's where all that goes on here. Okay. So we look at number 2. This is the UN Secretariat building here. And what goes on there? This is the administrative part of the UN. So what they do there is they support the other UN bodies, doing all the administration for the organisation, especially when they're setting up conferences and things like that. They write up the reports and the studies and all these things for the preparation of the budget. That's what happens here in number 2. So in number 3, this is the International Court of Justice here. And so what do? They decide disputes between states that recognise its jurisdiction. They issue legal opinions, renders judgment by relative majority. So in other words, it's 15-member judges are elected by the UN General Assembly for a 9-year term. So there are 15 judges that are elected here. They're elected by the UN General Assembly here for a term of 9 years. Right, on this slide here, number 4 is this is a moderate. It's considered someone off. Right, okay. This is the UN Security Council. Sorry, this one. This is the UN Security Council here, and they're the most important there. They're responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security. They may adopt the compulsory resolutions, and it has 15 members in here. This is where the 15 members are, 5 of which are permanent, and the others are temporary members. So the 5 permanent members of this council is China, France, Russia, UK, and the USA. So those are the 5 permanent members, and the other 10 now are going to be elected and given. So the 5 are given power, sort of veto power, to elect the other 10 members. And then number 5 here. This is the UN Economic and Social Council here. And so they're responsible for global economic and social affairs. And basically that's responsible for cooperation between states as regards to their economic or anything to do with social matters. It also coordinates the cooperation between the UN's numerous specialised agencies. And it has 54 members in here, 54 members there, elected by the General Assembly, which is number 1 on the previous slide, to serve a staggered 3-year mandates. So that's 54 members in the Economic and Social Council. So number 6 is this particular one here deals with global and economic affairs again, but it was originally designed to manage colonial possessions that were former League of Nations mandate. But this particular place here is has been it's not concurrently used for anything. It was inactive. It's been inactive since about in the 1990s. So and that was the last trust territory attained independence. So this particular place is not used. It's been inactive, number 6 has. And it's been inactive since 1994. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the UN before we move on? Okay. Something. Right, okay. So there was a press conference that was done. This is about these right-wing governors who came against the UN because they were setting up a summit for the future. And so they did a press conference to say they were against it because we're actually going to read into more detail exactly what that entails. So the right-wing governors, can somebody read that on for me? Can somebody read what's on the screen for me, please? Richard, could you do that for me, please?
Right-wing governors had a press conference which took place because they were against the UN's policies on Summit for the Future, where they spake of having an intergovernmental negotiated action plan on transforming global governance. The UN is seeking authority from other nations to support and comply if there are emergencies in the future. WHO, so that they who have the power to deal with all situations much quicker. These right-wing governors do not like the idea of this and are stating that the UN is seeking more power for themselves and that these policies are against the US Constitution, where Senate approval is required.
Exactly. Right, okay. So this is basically what they were saying. So I've got to admit that thank you, Richard. When I looked at this, I know that the United States, they really fund a lot of money to the World Health Organization. They in fact they give above and over to this particular cause. And I think when Trump was in, he said, right, we're going to stop funding them now. We're going to stop funding them, and we're not going to give them any more money. But this new Summit for the Future is a pact that the UN has set up for all nations to sign up to. And I think the Biden-Harris administration had signed into it. And this is what they were against. And I think when you look at the UN, I know that they sort of, and what they're asking for, when you read that Summit for the Future document, it's actually on the UN website. What they're asking for is for more power, basically. When anything like this, when a disaster or COVID or anything like that happens in the future, they just want to have the power just to deal with it. But all the nations have to sign up to do it. And when you read the actual policy, basically they're asking people to sign up for they're going to ask the richer countries for more tax, and they're going to place more tax on richer countries so that money can help the poorer countries. And also some of the things that they want to stand for, when you read it in more detail, is they stand up for they talk about sustainable development. So they're talking about climate change and all these things, funding that. Also, the impact of the future is also talking about human rights, gender, and of course climate change. And we know that the right-wing governors in there, they you know, we talked about it before. I remember I did a presentation about before about the Koch brothers, how they pay presidents, you know, before the electors, before they come on the scene, to stop them doing anything about climate change, because obviously that's how they make their money. And so this particular pact is saying that we really want to bring down these fossil fuels. And of course, the Koch brothers are billionaires. They're saying, listen, this is how we've made our money. This is our business. We'll give you all this money towards your campaign so that you don't talk about it. So this is the things that they are talking about. So I said to myself, why? Because when you listen to this, they say further on that they reckon that the UN is against their constitution. So they were sort of really hemming in about that when they were making this conference, this news conference, to say, oh, they're against our constitution. But I'm thinking to myself, and they're right wing, of course, conservatives, and I'm thinking, why are they saying that the UN is against their constitution? Because they've got representatives from the UN, from America, that are in the UN. They would have signed the charter, and all these things would have been there. They would have had to agree to it. But mind you, not everybody has to. I think they have to get so many votes for it to go forward. So not everybody has to, to sign for it. They have to have so many votes, just like anything, to push it forward. So I think they're not really happy about this, and I think they're right in one respect, that the UN is definitely seeking more power. You've got to read the pact and the policies within the UN's website, and you'll see that they definitely are seeking more power. So I'm trying to think, where is that going to go? Are they frightened because they're looking and thinking, well, the UN's having more power. Where the superpower here, and who are they to tell us that we've got to do this and do that? I don't know if that's going on. But and the reason why I've sort of brought this up as well is because I was trying to piece together, at the Sunday law, we were supposed to see Trump. Well, we're supposed to see America and the U and America being the head of the UN, and that's why I brought the UN into this study today. I'm thinking to myself, how is that going to happen? What's going to push somebody to want to head the UN? If I've just read in the beginning that this is supposed to be an impartial, and nobody's supposed to be, the head of it. They vote the person in. It's supposed to be like that. Nobody's supposed to have authority over the whole thing, because they're all supposed to work together. And I'm wondering how those laws, especially when Trump gets in, how that's going to be pushed forward for them to do that. That's why I bought. I'm sort of looking deeper now into how the UN is going to be used in this power struggle that Trump particularly wants, or it could be the right that wants it. I don't know, Rita, because I haven't really looked deeper into that yet. Does anybody else have any questions?
So is it an unwritten law that America was heading the UN?
Well, when we look at it, the actual lines, which we're going to look at in a moment, what's supposed to happen is, at the Sunday law, we're supposed to see, obviously, the King of the North rising up, right, at the Sunday law, and Trump, I reckon, even though I know they're saying Kamala's going to win. And then we're supposed to see the Sixth Kingdom transfer into the Seventh Kingdom. So the Sixth Kingdom, obviously USA, transfers into the Seventh Kingdom. That's when when he comes the head of the UN. And I'm not saying that we're supposed to see that in July, because I don't think that's happened. But I know that Sunday law is going to be a progressive event, a series of events, isn't it? But I think in my mind, I expected wham, bam, wham, bam, everything's going to happen at the Sunday law. But I think it's going to be a series of events as we see the Sunday law. So not everything. So because we know that the Sunday law is July, and we know that Sunday law has happened. But I said to myself, well, I mean, when I saw the lines, I thought, well, aren't we supposed to see, the King of the North in power? Aren't we supposed to see the king, the King of the South fall down? I mean, I know he's getting down there, but have we actually seen all these things? And have we seen the UN? Have we seen anybody, the head of the UN? The answer to that is no, we haven't. So I think in my own mind, I can only speak about myself. I think I thought that everything we're going to see all this thing at the Sunday law, But I know that in one of Elder Perminder's presentations, he says that obviously it's going to be like a series of events. I think from the Sunday law, he does say there's no significant date for things to happen, and that they're going to have, that day won't have a singular date. It'll just be, a series of events happening at the Sunday law. So I think the best thing to do really is look at 2014 to see what took place there. We've got to familiarise ourselves with 2014 Sunday law to really understand how that's going to look in 2024 really this year.
Right.
Does anybody else have any questions? Can somebody read on the CG? Do you want to read what's on the screen, please? You
Yeah.
don't mind. Thank you.
Is that press conference?
Yeah, the one underneath.
Okay, the Biden administration has fully supported this agreement with the United Nations and has overridden the decision that Trump made previously. Trump no longer supported the World Health Organization and agreed that no funds would be sent to help them. Well, these governors stated that the United Nations hated the US Constitution, but I do not believe this, especially if every nation voted for it to be ratified. However, I do think the UN is most definitely after more power.
Yeah, which is what I just said, yeah. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that before we move on? Right, okay. These are the waymarks that I was talking about a moment ago. Now, I'm sure that everybody's seen Elder Terry's presentation of the Sunday law, and where she said here, July 21st, that when she looked at the voting, Fabius Maximus Gurgis and the maximum flood and how the voting was done. I can't remember all the words she said exactly today, but basically she's talking about voting and making that come under our midway way mark. And at first, I must admit, when I first heard it, I thought, oh, right, okay. I was a little unsure. I don't think I fully agreed with it at first, I'll be honest. But I thought to myself, right, let me go back to it and see how she's got this information. And because I don't think I imagined to see that Sunday law was going to be, based on the voting. I don't know what everybody else thought. Anybody else give me their thoughts? No, okay. I didn't think that this was going to be about voting. So I looked back at it and I thought to myself, right, why is this based on voting exactly? Because I thought I was supposed to see, well, I think what I was looking at 538, and I was looking at the King of the North when the papacy got into power. And I thought we were going to see something like that. Don't get me wrong, we need to be looking at the waymarks. But I think in my own mind, I thought we were going to see the King of the North in power, and that would be the Sunday law. So I was thinking 2025. So, but like Elder Binda says, even though this is a Sunday law waymark, these things happen with, progression of events. I don't think there's I think that's what he said anyway. So, when we look at the Sunday law here, I believe that is a Sunday law. I believe that the things that we're seeing are going to happen in the future, in the not too distant future. We're going to see things taking place anyway. So I don't know, does everybody believe that what Elder Terry put? Do they understand what she meant by bringing the voting at the midway Sunday law? Or does anybody want to make any comments about that? Marshall? Richard?
I just understand that they're going to make it look as if it's a vote, but it's not going to be. Because
Can you say that again, sorry?
why would one of the sins of America be because they're pretending to be a democratic system, making it look as if they're voting in? And you already stated that the media making it appear that Harris is, all set for the win. Most of the media, anyway, not all of it. And then next thing we know what we're gonna hear. So I don't know exactly, but for one of the sins to be pretending to be a democratic system, then there's something really untoward going on.
Right, okay. I'm not really sure what you meant by that, Richard, but
Well,
but
democratic is you vote an elected leader in, isn't it?
yes, exactly, yeah. Yeah, it's all
Okay,
about
so
voting.
there's some I don't know exactly what, but I don't think it's going to go by the vote or something. And we know gerrymandering, they've already favoured it for the GOP way. So it's going to appear to be democratically elected, but I don't think it is.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. I agree with you there. And the thing is, I want to come on what you just said. Then I want to come into more detail about what you just said there. So basically, yeah. So when I looked at this, I didn't realize. I never thought that it was just based on voting. But I remember when I was looking at that when Harris and Biden, when in the party they wanted Biden to sort of leave because obviously he was aging and I think he wasn't sort of speaking properly. And I realized that we're talking about July 21st here. When I looked at that, I thought, oh, when we saw the handover, or when Biden spoke to Harris about taking on the nomination to go for president, I think he spoke to her first, and I think it was actually put into place actually on the 21st. She actually changed hands on the July the 21st. So, which is very sort of significant, isn't it? And also, yeah, so because I thought to myself, what is so, about July 21st? But she actually changed hands. You can read it on the website. She actually changed over, to president or acting president, and going for president in July 21st. So that was, and also when we think about I was thinking about, Eurasia Group. Do you remember when we looked at that, when Elder Paminda bought that thing about Eurasia Group that was coming out and what they said and all the things that we had to look out for and what they thought was going to happen in the not distant future. And when we look at the 2024, the Sunday Law Waymark, what happened, which was unprecedented? Does anybody remember? What did Eurasia say that was going to take place in 2024? Does anybody remember?
No.
You don't? Right, okay. Basically, Eurasia was talking how all the nations around the world were voting. They were all voting in 2024. And so when we look at Eurasia with and what they brought out, I thought, gosh, we've heard of nations voting, but why 2024? It's never happened before. So why all the nations voting in 2024? So it's all to
Consolidating
do
their
with, you know what I
power.
mean? Yeah, it's all to do with voting. And it was definitely unprecedented. When I looked at that, I thought, oh, how weird was that? So really, the fact that we had that information and Elder Terry was talking about voting, we should have put the two and two together, I think, because I do believe what she's saying is true. I do believe that's a Sunday law too, because a whole heap of things have happened on that Sunday law, according to this year. And just because it hasn't happened, like King of the North Sin and all these things, doesn't mean that it's not still the Sunday law. It's going to take, it's going to happen from here and keep having all these little series of events happening from here. And we are going to see those things happen eventually, especially whoever gets in. Okay. Does anybody else want to talk about the waymarks?
Hello,
Hi,
Debbie.
Debbie.
Who's that? Sorry.
It's Ignatius.
Oh, Ignatius, hi there.
I'm well. I'm well.
Good. Amen.
I, unfortunately I didn't get to watch. I mean to get into the Zoom presentation for Elder Terry. But I have a question with regards to the two lines on top. The line of the 144,000 on top, the one in red,
Yeah.
and then the Millerized line just below it.
Yes.
Okay, so the 144,000 line, there is a Sunday low waymark there.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Mm-hmm.
And underneath that Sunday low waymark for the 144,000 is being put on top, or rather the Millerite line is being equated with the 144,000 line. Then the Boston waymark, July 21st, is the one that's being made equal to the Sunday law, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
So now, where I'm failing to understand it is that the Sunday law for the Millerites, the bigger line for the Millerites, which is the 144,000 for the Millerites, is not July 21st. It is 1850.
Right.
Yeah. So how did those two? I don't understand how they then get linked up together, because the Boston code and Exeter, that one is for the line of the Millerites priests, not the Millerites 144,000. You see now. So I'm sure, I know that there are people have different views with regards to the Sunday law waymark. In as far as now is concerned, I haven't had the official position of the movement.
No, I don't. I don't think there has been, actually. I don't think there has been, because I agree with that. I
Yeah,
said to
people
myself,
are
well,
still.
since it's come out, nobody really
Yeah,
has
people.
really accentuated or spoke about it. But I do believe it, because go on. Sorry, let you speak, Ignatius. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. I'm saying people are still studying, people are still considering and having thoughts over
Yes.
the issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you look at line number 3, that one, the one that begins with 1798, then August 11, 1840, then
Yeah, you talk about here,
1850.
right? Yeah.
Yes. That one is the Sunday law that equates, that is equal to the 2024 Sunday law, our Sunday law. Because this line number 3, is the one that's equal to line number 1, according to my understanding. So according to my understanding so far, I stand to be corrected though if there's been any changes. We have the two waymarks between 9/11/2001 and Sunday law is Raffia and Paniam, right? So I would, and we have in the past marked Paniam as the beginning of the agitation of the Sunday law. You see? So the agitation goes until we get to the Sunday law waymark, which is an election. I think I agree about the election based on the arguments that Elder Terry presented in that other presentation about
Which
it being
she
an
did
election.
say. Yeah, which she did say was July, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I think I have a concern is to do with which election now, because for me, I'm more comfortable with the
Yeah,
main election. Yeah. The
yeah,
main.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
go on. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I think you can go on, Debbie.
Yeah. So what are you saying? You don't believe that it's July, or what's it got to do with July?
Yes, I'm saying I'm not quite convinced. Maybe perhaps if I do watch, if she made another presentation on the issue, I missed it when
Oh,
it gets
she's done
uploaded.
Ignatius, she's done two. She's done two of them. And she does explain. I think before you ask any questions, then I think the best, or before I answer, it's best that you watch it first. So I think that,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
watch the first one and watch the second one, because Elder Terry goes into quite great detail about voting, how it came about, and she explains everything. I think it's best that you watch that first, watch both of them first together, and then come up with your remarks or come up with any questions. It may answer your question.
Okay, no, that's
All
okay.
right. Yes,
All right.
okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Right, we'll just move on then. Okay, we'll just move on. Oops, why is it not moving? It's not moving now. Oh yeah. I think that's yeah. So right, okay. Can somebody read the next one, the next slide, please? We're looking at the King of the South. Okay, Ignatius, do you want to read what's on the slide?
Okay.
Thank you.
King of the South. At the Sunday law, okay. At the Sunday law, we are supposed to see the death of the King of the South. He loses his influence, and when this takes place, the King of the North accelerates. Have we seen this? Elder Terry states that 18th July 2024 is the Sunday law, and this had been based on the maximum flood, looking back in history at voting Faber beans. When we look at 2014 Midway, which was a Sunday law, Russia's annexation of Crimea took place in 2014 and later confirmed that Russia personnel surrounded the airports in Crimea, a majority Russian peninsula in Ukraine.
Okay, so basically, what I want to do, thank you, Ignatius, I want to look at us to look at back at 2014. Elder Perminder did a study about 2014, and he asked the questions that he asked was, I mean, I'm going to ask you the questions. So he spoke about three key events at Sunday Law 2014. So does anybody remember what they were? So Elder Miranda spoke about three key events of 2014 at the Sunday Law. Does anybody remember what they were? Can anybody guess?
Is one of them the annexation of Crimea by Ukraine, by Russia? No.
No. Okay. I mean, we know that these took place. Does anybody remember what the key events were?
What about the blocking of the judges by Mitch McConnell that Obama wanted to appoint?
No, he didn't. No, wasn't that? No. I'll give you. He spoke about democracy. I'll give you a.
So it's
clue.
Cambridge Analytica?
No.
No, okay.
So basically, I'll talk about it. So when he spoke about these three keys, he spoke about, just bear with me. He spoke about the purging of the Republican Party, and also basically that we're going to see this huge transformation of the Republican Party. Does anybody remember that? That was one of them. Then he spoke about Trump. So what about Trump? He spoke about the first impeachment that would follow Trump, the impeachment, and he said what will follow Trump. So, so when we look at the impeachment of Trump, we also know he's got this sort of personality that he has, and also he's known for his conspiracy theories. So what Elder Perminder brought out there was that if you're going to follow him, that you're going to you have to accept his his conspiracy theories. So obviously, if you're going to keep electing him in, then you have to sort of accept those theories. Especially when he spoke about the 2020 results. A lot of people sort of believed him and sort of believed those conspiracies. And also, we saw McConnell. He blocked the judicial appointments there, so that Trump could get his own sort of conservative judges in place, which is what he's done. And also, the other one was about, I can't remember her name now. Was it RGB? I can never remember her name. Something Ginsburg. Does anybody remember the name? RGB.
Ruth.
Ruth.
Ruth, that's it. I can remember her name. So it's about her. She wrote so many pages. I think it was a 35-page thing, and it was about Hobby Lobby. And she spoke about birth, IVF control. She spoke about religious freedom. And basically, she saw the implications of the decision that they made. She saw the complications that would have been made by them making the wrong decision. Okay, so and then he spoke about that we had to look at was the world's largest democracy. Do we understand who's got the world's largest democracy? Is it the United States?
Someone said it was India, didn't they?
Yes, it was. It was. Yes, okay. So he spoke about that, and he spoke about that before we see the USA's democracy crumble, we've got to look at India first, so that we can have an idea what's going to happen to the USA. And what else did he speak about? He spoke about democracy and gender. And I will ask you the question. So, how do we view this at the Sunday Law? That question's out there. How do we view democracy and gender at the Sunday Law?
So the Sunday Law is going to be the death of democracy.
Yeah.
Well,
how did we see it, I should say?
Yeah. And we should also see an attack on equality as it regards to women's rights.
Mm. Is that how you see democracy as well?
Yes, I think so. I think we have to see the courts, the Supreme Court being used or utilized by one person to undo that equality based on gender. Yeah, that's what I think.
Right. Okay. Also, thank you, Ignatius. Also, he spoke about the first 4 trumpets as well, the whole of Rome in the West. And he said that God picks out 4 steps that collapse Western Rome. What were those? Do you remember? What did Elder Parminter say that the 4 steps that collapse Western Rome? How does God go about picking that? Anybody remember? No? Okay, he says the lines of revolutions. He said World War I and World War II. And he said that looking at those structures will help us to see what is really happening in these events, these last time events. Okay, so that's the lines of revolutions, World War I and World War II. These structures help us to see what is really happening in the series of events. Now, going back to democracy, what else do we see when we see India and their democracy? Because we know the president there is Modi, okay? And can anybody tell me about Modi? Who is he? First of all,
He's a Hindu nationalist.
that's right. So he's a Hindu. He supports nationalism, doesn't he? So if we're going to be looking at this largest democracy, and Elder Parminter saying that their democracy is going to be duplicated in the USA, what else are we going to see? If we're seeing nationalism in India, what are we going to be seeing in the USA? Because we're talking about democracy now, so we know that democracy is falling apart, right? So what are we going to see in the USA?
I think we should see nationalism too.
Yes,
Oh.
okay. So
Mhm.
if we're seeing nationalism, what else? What is that going to cause? So we see that democracy is falling or has fallen. So if nationalism, if that's going to cause nationalism, what's going to arise out of nationalism?
A dictator.
Yes, but what am I looking at? I'm looking for another word beginning with F.
Fascism, all-
Fascism. Fascism.
Okay.
racism,
That's it.
everything that goes
Fascism.
with it.
Yeah. So when we look at that, sorry.
Christian nationalists.
Yeah, well, it's not just Christian nationalists. But anyway, I was going to say if democracy is falling, which we know it is, it causes this nationalism, which is rising. And Elton has said when nationalism rises, what rises out of that? Falling, then fascism comes out of it. So we're going to see all these things happen in the USA. We're going to see that soon, actually. So when we go back to the study that he did, he talked because we said that, why isn't it racism? But and then he said racism can't cause a falling, failing democracy. It's these things that we just spoke about. That's what's going to cause a falling, failing democracy. So it's not going to be racism. That's how we know it's going to be gender. Okay, so basically he said that
Going to be patriarchy.
yeah. So what is fascism? Anybody? What is fascism? See, Richard, what is fascism, please? Without looking on your device.
Fascism's just
Yeah.
a result of nationalism and the rest that comes with it. It's just a horrible spirit, a horrible mindset.
Right, okay, thank you. Basically, fascism is an authoritative and a nationalistic form of right-wing government, and it is rooted in the country's power and held by one ruler or a small group under a single party. So that's what fascism is. So this is not going to be a Christian problem, and Elder Piminda said there's not such thing as a secular society. Okay, so he said this is not a Christian problem.
So it's like a dictatorship, fascism.
Yeah, they're impacted by what? So if it's not a Christian problem, it's not a secular problem. What problem is it?
Cult
What did Elder
problem.
Piminda bring out of that study? He says they're impacted by culture. He said that culture has a history tied to a type of Christianity, Hinduism, or Islam. It all comes back to paganism. That's what the formalization tells you. That's what Elder Piminda has informed us. So these are the things that we should know. Right, okay. Go back to the next study. Right, okay.
So are you saying there's no Christian principles there?
No, he said it's all paganism.
Right.
All
So
paganism.
he
So
shot-
I've got this information from it is in there. I think it's Elder Piminda's study in 22. I think it was. I got most of that information from. It's quite good, very, very good. So I advise you to sort of go back to that and look at what he talks about, and also what we can talk about before we talk about the King of the North. He talks about the waymarks as well. He talks about, because obviously we've got to base the Sunday law by looking at the 2014. Because he's saying that we've got according to that waymark, especially from 2014 to 2021. He was saying that many waymarks, many events, many messages. He said that obviously in 2014 we have 2 dispensations, and then when we come on to 2019, we spoke about equality, feminism on a superficial level, And in 2020, we spoke about APUS bull. And of course, then we found out Sunday law was gender, and that was due to a failing democracy, especially USA and most of the world, especially India. So that's why we're looking at democracy, and that's why we're talking about democracy and things that we're seeing in 2014, especially do with the King of the North, King of the South, and the things that are going on in his nation as well. Right, okay, we're going to move on and read about the King of the North. Can somebody read that on the screen, please? Can somebody read what's on the screen?
Okay.
Thank you.
King of the North. For more information gleaned from social media, from information gleaned from social media, newspapers and the like, we have Kamala Harris and Trump battling it out at the polls for 2024. Even though we know a Republican is supposed to win, the prediction is that Kamala Harris will win. It was a bit of a shock for me to hear this, but even though this has been predicted, how will Trump deal with this situation? Will this cause Trump to have a hissy fit and push his way in and steal power? Will there be civil war in the USA? And will Kamala be forced out? What do you think this will look like? Let's discuss the issue.
Right, before we talk about that, thank you, Ignatius. I just want to read something about the King of the South, which I've unfortunately missed out. When we talk about the King of the South, and we're talking about his downfall, I was just thinking about the things that we're going through at the moment. And I know the last thing I saw with Trump, I mean, obviously, I think that when he went into Ukraine recently and sort of thought he could just take over in a matter of months, he obviously overestimated the situation. More to his advantage, really. And obviously things are not going the way that he wants. So I saw something the other day in the a little news clip, and basically he's actually asked, I know that he's friendly with Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-un, North Korea. And what he's done is actually used some of his troops, and they're actually over Ukraine now fighting for him. So I'm thinking, what's going on? So I do believe we are seeing the downfall of the King of the South. Things are not going the way he wants, economically wise, influential wise. I think he's looking to his allies to help him out. And it says here, and I'll read a concept. It says, after pulling out from the capital in spring 2022, Russian troops have been going forward in the eastern Donetsk region. Putin seemingly had regained the initiative. His tactic to bomb and steamroller towns and broken villages. The war he calculated would eventually end on Russia's terms. Ukraine would be forced to give up the territory it had already lost, about 80% of the country and the more cities on top. So the past 12 days have shattered the Kremlin's strategic assumptions, born from the fact that Russia has a bigger, more powerful army. On the 6th of August, Ukraine launched a surprise cross-border raid into Russia's Kursk region. It was the biggest foreign incursion into Russia since the Second World War. Moscow has no inkling that this was coming. Ukrainians walloped a Russian border post and breezed into the enemy territory. When I heard, when you hear of this, it sounds as if Ukraine is winning. I mean, I don't know how to look at these two things at the moment. I think looking at the fact that he's asked these troops to come in now shows me that there's some kind of doubt in his mind somewhere, because obviously things are not going the way that he wants them to be. So, and they normally say they watch his moves, and they say when he disappears for a while, it's normally because there's doubt there. I mean, I don't know, there could be these things, there's normally doubt there, or there's some issues that he's got to deal with. It's not happening the way he wants. So is this the thing that we're seeing that's going to push the King of the South down? you know, to die. I don't know. I mean, what does anybody think about that before we come into the King of the North? What does anybody see happening when we see these things happening with the King of the South? How do they see him actually coming off the scene now? Is it just simply spheres of influence? How do you see that happening? I think I've been trying to find out or understand how that's going to happen and how that's going to uplift. I know it's to do with spheres of influence. Has anybody seen or see or understand that the King of the South has lost? Is it spheres of influence? Is he losing the spheres of influence, or has he lost them? What do people think?
Hi, Debbie.
Yeah.
There is. Have you ever looked into this new organization, how it's growing, BRICS? The one that they are coming up with to compete with the United Nations or with the G7.
Yeah, yeah.
Where they have that where Russia is actually coordinating other countries that are against bullying from the US to
Oh, so, yeah,
unite and form their economic bloc.
Yeah, they're trying to influence them. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like they met during the course of this week, I think on Thursday.
Right.
Yeah, they did meet. And from that front, it looks like he's getting support from quite a number of companies, countries, because BRICS, mainly it composed of 5 countries. Now many countries are coming to join BRICS, especially those that are headed by dictators, because they don't like American foreign policy. Countries like my country, Zimbabwe, they are now looking into joining BRICS and moving away from the West completely, because they believe that this continued interference of America into national politics, they don't like it, because America want to impose, its own democracy. You see now. So for me, it's quite difficult to give a clear-cut lose
Yeah. Because
for
I was
Putin.
looking at that, Ignatius, but about BRICS anyway, because I know that he's got Iran and other countries that he's sort of friendly with, and I'm thinking, even though he has that, because I've looked at that, even though they has that, he's still not going to have that influence that he desires, is he? You know what I mean? It's still going to go down somehow. So I'm not sure if this is going to do with Ukraine or to do with Ukraine. Is he going to stop? I mean, is he going to just pull out? I mean, I can't see him doing that, to be honest, because that means he'd have to surrender. Do you see that happening maybe? Or do you think, you know what I mean? But for him to go to die, what's going to happen with Ukraine? You know what I mean? Is he going to carry on with it, or is he just going to have to admit defeat? You know what I mean? All these questions are sort of in my head. What's that going to look like? Is he going to eventually give up, or, and say, because how is he going to die? Is it just simply to do with spheres of influence, and this war's still going to go on? So there's all these questions that I'm battling with in my head to see what, how that issue is going to pan out.
It's very difficult.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. I've got those questions back in my head. I'm sure Elsbin can answer them. But I mean, I think that I think those things are sort of battling in my head. I'm really sort of thinking deeply about these issues, and I know that we've always got to go back to Pyrrhus and Putin and things, and I know Pyrrhus, Putin, and all that sort of stuff. I'm thinking, oh, what's going to happen here? Is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? And I'm trying to sort of work it out myself, my own head, my own mind, because when you read these things, you think, what, so. But anyway, we're going to move forward because of time. Going on, thank you, Nicholas. About the King of the North. Well, we know that the election is going to be over in a couple of weeks' time. Sometimes I can't believe we're talking about a couple of weeks. And so even though I've been looking at this particular man, I can't remember his name, but he's always been interviewed, and he always predicts who's going to win a presidential election. And he's been right up until now, over a decade or so. He's always been correct. And he works by using keys, these particular keys. And then when he talks about, even though I'm not, basing my theory on that, but it's quite interesting to hear how he did it. And he says that Kamala's going to win it. And I thought, right, if he's been right or correct all this time, if she's going to win it, I don't feel that she's going to be, because we know that Trump's going to get in power somehow. It's got to be a Republican that's going to get in somehow. So, and that's why I was asking the question, because we're going to see, I'm going to, after this slide, we're going to talk about the things that Republicans have been up to in order to win the election as well. And I don't know if you remember some time ago, Elder Piminda did a story, did a presentation about gerrymandering and about North Carolina, Moore versus Harper, and what they were doing there. Does everybody remember the gerrymandering case or the North Carolina thing that Elder Piminda was talking about, and how the right wing were trying to push into court about having these electoral maps, so it'll go into their favour? Does anybody remember that? And
I
what
remember that. And also,
you remember it? Yeah, it was a
the
good one, wasn't it? Yeah.
voting fraud thing, where that mother and daughter were accused of putting in votes for Biden, but all they was doing is putting in the votes of these people who left the voting office, and they put these boxes under the tables, and like a woman come in, cleared the room, and this mother and daughter stayed to scan. They hadn't been scanned, these votes, to scan them through, but the GOP put a false narrative to the video clip of that of the cameras that were in that room, and it was so they give a false narrative to an actual events.
Yeah.
Terrible it was, and that's what it all hung on. The
Right. Okay. Thank you, Richard. Basically, this North Carolina is called the Independent State Legislature, and ISL for short. And basically, it's a right-wing constitutional theory. So when Elder Piminda did this, he was speaking about this particular case that was going forward in North Carolina, and I think it was going in October the 7th. I mean, he said to us to listen to it and read what the results are going to be. He said it's going to be terrible if they win it. Okay. So anyway, so I looked at what the ISL theory, if they're still doing it, if the North right wing governors were still pushing ahead with this, because I thought, well, all this ISL, it's gone quiet for a while. Why aren't they, you know what I mean? And so I thought what I'd do, I'd sort of look and search to see if they're still pushing ahead, to see if they could still, win this state legislature theory. And I found something that happened in March, actually, of this year. And it said that the US Supreme Court declined to review a lawsuit from, listen to this, and this happened in Pennsylvania, from 27 Pennsylvania Republic lawmakers seeking to revive the right-wing independent state legislature theory, which posits the US Constitution affords state legislatures exclusive authority to regulate federal elections. Despite the US Supreme Court's previous rejection of the fringe constitutional argument in the 22 one, which is the North Carolina one, Republican litigants across the country have repeatedly attempted to resurrect this dubious theory. So they are still doing it, and they did it on March. So the case at the center of today's order, which is March, which a federal district judge court judge dismissed in March. So they were trying to resurrect this this ISL again. And listen to this part. It says invokes or cancelled the right-wing theory to challenge a series of state and federal executive actions designed to expand voter registration. So the Keystone state lawmakers specifically took issue with President Joe Biden's 2021 executive order to facilitate voter registration and promote voting access nationwide. The suit also sought to void a set of Pennsylvania specific voting policies, including Governor Josh Shapiro's 2023 directive that implemented automatic voter registration for residents obtaining driver licenses and ID cards. So that's really weird. But anyway, so under the legislature's reasoning, Biden, Shapiro, and other state and federal defendants usurped, which means take a position of power illegally or by force, the authority of Pennsylvania legislatures by changing Pennsylvania election laws via executive orders and nullifying the votes of individual legislatures in violation of the US Constitution's elections and elector clauses. So without reaching to the merits, so basically what the federal district judge did, it was toss it out. They said that the actual case lacked standing, and writing that the plaintiffs as individual legislators do not have the standing before they have not alleged any particular injury that is not also suffered by each member of the Pennsylvania General Assembly. So basically, what they tried to do then, when they were told it was tossed out, they went to a Supreme Court, and they call it an appellate court. And basically, that type of court is commonly known as an appeal court. So they took it there, and the U.S. Supreme Court, where they argued that individual legislatures have standing under the elections and electors clauses. Initially, the lawmakers asked the High Court to bypass the Third Circuit and resolve the matter on an expedited basis to ensure the resolution of the case before the November 2024 election, but the court declined to do so. So what they were doing, they were pushing ahead with this case again, so they could gerrymander states in their favour. The high Supreme Court cancelled it. And when did they want it to? Why were they trying to expedite it? Because they wanted to change they wanted this independent state legislature change before November. So what I mean? So it'd be in their favour. So we can see that they are really pushing this ISL theory, and I don't think they're going to, even though it's been cancelled, I don't believe that we're going to hear the last of this. I think that the right is determined to gerrymander states in their favour, and so they can keep winning elections and to stay in power. So I think that this is what's behind this ISL, and they tried it again in March of this year. So that was interesting, wasn't it? Just before, and they wanted it done before the November election. So that's what I found. So I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to tell everybody this today. It really is interesting that they were still pushing for that. So it shows me that they're determined to stay in power. Does anybody have any queries about that or any questions?
So Debbie, you're
Yeah.
saying maybe this is going to contribute to the way through which Trump might win the election?
Yeah, that's what they were trying to do. It was cancelled. They didn't win the case. But what I'm saying is it would have automatically, not only would he have won, but they would keep staying in power because they would have had certain states in their favour. It's like a gerrymander mapping thing. You're going to have to, after this, if you look on gerrymandering, it will explain to you exactly how they map out these particular states in their favour, and they will automatically win. They'll automatically win, and not only that, but they'll always stay in power. So that's what they're pushing to. They're pushing to do it, and this is the second time that they failed to do it. And apparently, when I listened to that clip, they said that there they are. These lawmakers who stopped it from going through said that they're still drafting up another case again. So that shows me how determined they are to push this theory into being legal, basically.
Debbie, with the 2020 still the vote thing,
Yeah.
in the White House, in one of the big conference halls, all the GOP gathered up and had this big conference to draft up a document, and it was a secret meeting, but it was actually someone did stumble across it,
Yeah.
and this woman forced her way in, and it became, they had to make it public, but they was just trying to say that Trump had won, draft up through their political process, draft up this document to say that Trump had won, but because this person came in and made it public, they weren't able to be successful in what they did, and then they tried to claim that it wasn't a private meeting. That's
Yeah,
a documentary about Trump and the 2020.
yeah. So I would, if you can go back, it's called Pennsylvania Lawmakers. So if you read up about that, it'll show, obviously it'll give you more information about what they were up to. And they really, I tell you, these people, they're determined. They are really determined to push their power ahead and get what they want. They're not giving up. So on that, I'm just going to look at this. And the reason why I looked at this, I remember Trump was saying, I remember looking at this particular clip, and Trump said to everybody, don't worry, you don't have to vote. It'll be fixed, you'll be fine. And that's what made me look at the ISL. Is he talking, is he just saying it for the sake of saying it? Or is there an agenda behind his words? So I'm just going to play this.
We have to win this election, most important election ever. We want a landslide that's too big to rig. If you want to save America, get your friends, get your family, get everyone you know, and vote. Vote early, vote absentee, vote on election day. I don't care how, but you have to get out and vote. And again, Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed, it'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote. We have to win this election, most.
Right.
That's
Now,
the thing about Trump, isn't it? He's always telling the truth.
but I'm just saying, I mean, he didn't. When I looked at that, I immediately thought it'll be fixed, it'll be fine. And sometimes you have to really listen to what he's saying. And I'm thinking, what's he talking about? It'll be fixed, it'll be fine. And then when I looked at this Pennsylvania ISL going on, I thought, is he talking about that? He seems very confident that he's going to get in. He sounds very confident about a lot of things. I know that's his arrogance anyway. But I mean, I said to myself, right, I wonder if he's talking about the ISL. Because that's why they said to the Supreme Court, we want this expedited. We want it before the November, before the November election. Did you mean? This is what they were doing, and this got cancelled in March. So they were really pushing to get this thing done. And when I think about Trump and what he was saying there, is he talking about the ICL that they just cancelled in March? Was he talking about that? Or was he talking about, because I know that they're not going to stop there. They'll keep on doing it until they win.
Absolutely.
They will. Anyway,
to save America.
I want to go back to the next slide. How do I get back to it?
Hello, Debbie.
Yeah, I'm just going to, I don't know how to go on my next slide now.
We have to win this.
Oh, here. Yeah, sorry, did somebody speak then?
Yes, it's me. It's Simba.
Yeah, okay. Hello.
New piece in Politico magazine entitled New Piece.
Uh-oh. Sorry
It's
about that. I've gone too far with it now. Oh, here it is. I want to go back this way. It should go this way. Gosh. Sorry about this. I don't know why it's doing this. Oh, here. Where were we? Yeah, I want to go here. Beg your pardon, everyone.
Hello, Debbie.
Yes, hello.
All right. I wanted to ask, what is our position?
We have to.
Sorry, go ahead.
All right. I wanted to ask, what is our position as a movement in regard to the coming election? As a movement, are we expecting a win for Trump or a win for Harris as a movement?
Yeah, I remember a presentation done years ago, and I think it might have been Elder Tabo. I'm not sure on that one, but I know that when we were looking at the Bible, we were saying that the Bible was, I don't know how we got that information from the Bible, but they were expecting a Republican to get in. And so this is where we got it from, and that's why it's got to be. The thing is, what would be, for me, I'm just talking about myself, what would be the point in having a Democratic, even though it would be better to have a Democratic in, But what would be the point of having that? You know, I can't see that happening because what we're supposed to be seeing and everything, we're supposed to be seeing everything coming against God's laws. You know what I mean? Not because, you know what I mean? That's what we're supposed to be seeing. So our stand is with the Democrats, and also you know, maybe not all of it, but most of it, and sort of especially the equality laws and the things that they stand for. But a Republican now would be quite the opposite. They're not looking at the Constitution in a way that it's supposed to be a living Constitution. They want to take their conservative laws and keep it patriarchal, keep it Christian. I think they want a Christian nation myself. And also they want to, even though they talk about freedom, they actually are using laws to oppress women. So they're against LGBTQ, they're pro-life and all these type of things. So I think that these things are supposed to happen to bring in the for Christ to come in. All these things are supposed to happen, but we're supposed to sort of stand up against it. That's the way I think it. Anyway, I don't know if anybody else can say anything, but we are to be democratic in mind. We're pro, you know, and we're not anti-LGBTQ and all these type of things. But I would say the movement's position on that would be to be against anything that comes against human rights, people's rights. We're against oppression on people, any kind of person, no matter what they are. We're not that. We're totally the opposite of that, and that's what the movement stands for.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Debbie. It's Melania.
Hello, Melania. Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to ask. I know what the movement stands for. We
Yeah.
are pro-democratic
Yeah.
because the values that
Definitely.
the Democratic Party is upholding or standing for is what we do as a movement. But my
Yes.
question is, isn't it we are making predictions about the election itself? So according to our prediction as a movement, who's going to win the election? Trump or Harris?
I think I don't know what the movement is based on that. I think that all I can say is, even though that everybody keeps saying Kamala, I personally think that even though she may win it, I do think that something's going to happen. I do think that something's going to happen. I mean, I don't know if I'm right in saying that, but I'm just going to be honest, even if I'm not particularly correct. But I feel that I still think Trump's going to get in somehow. I don't know how it's going to happen, and that's why I was going to put that question out there, because I don't think, even though it's good for a Democratic president to get in, because that's what would serve our purposes, but I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. Even though they are saying that they reckon that Kamala's going to get in, I still think there's going to be a steal somewhere, and I think they'll find a way of getting him in, because it's not going to be in his best interest to get in anyway. Because if he doesn't, I know that this is not the point. He'll be put in jail. So he's going to make sure he gets in. Let me tell you that. And I think the way that they're pushing for all these laws to be changed, they're not going to give up either. So they've got the WCF, Congress of Families, which is what we're going to speak about next. They've got the Federal Society. They've got such a lot of backing behind them. And I know it's not to do with the money, but they've got such a lot of, they're getting their people into the political world. They're making sure they are. You know what I mean? They really have been working, and I would say more than the Democrats actually, and pushing to get their way and their policies and information in. So I honestly feel that that Trump is going to get in somehow, even though it looks as if Kamala's going to get in. That's what
Okay.
I think. He's either steal it or whatever. I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. So which means as a movement, it's safe to say we don't have a position at the moment as to who's going to win.
No, I don't think we should be speculating either. But let's put it this way: I wouldn't be surprised if Trump gets his way somehow. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't be surprised if he does.
That SCOTUS ruling, above the law. So something
Yeah.
illegal is going to happen. He's going to get in, and then he's going to be above the law.
Well, he's above the law. The way he speaks, he's above
Yeah,
the law.
well, he gets
He's
away with
talking
everything
about it.
anyway, doesn't he?
We
But
know exactly what he's like. So he's. I mean, some of the laws he said. He even says. He's even said he's going to be an authoritarian. He's already said it.
yeah, he's bold in what he said.
Yeah, he's like a loose cannon. He'll just say exactly what he feels, and sometimes he'll keep things back. Let me tell you, especially about abortion. But you can bet when he's in, he'll push things the way that he wants it. But anyway, moving on. This particular, I've spoken about this particular society before. It's the World Congress of Families. They're a right-wing Christian organization that have been going around the world and forcing their rhetoric on certain countries, promoting hate. They're a hate group, and they're promoting these anti-LGBT and pro-family rhetoric. But that not only have they been sort of talking about it, but the Human Rights Commission have said they've been very forceful with it. So when we think about them being Christian, and then I know that MS did a presentation about mystery of iniquity, and then she did something about mystery of righteousness. So she said that the mystery of iniquity it's forceful, it's evil and it's forceful. And this is what this particular group is, even though it professes that it's Christian. So we're saying that even though they feel that they're doing right by God, I assume that they think they're doing right by God, they're actually doing quite the opposite and doing more harm. And so the Human Rights Commission have written a report about this particular group to say do not support them. They've had so much influence in over 81 plus countries around the world, and they've even had the blessing of one of the presidents to go ahead and do it. So I can understand them doing this in their own country, but what I want to know is what is the purpose of them going out externally to all countries? Is this part of this UN takeover where all countries are now going to be embracing this anti-LGBTQ and pro-family rhetoric? And people will say, well, yes, other countries are already thinking this already. I said, but yes, but this particular one here, they're not giving up. And if they're forceful, they want them to push push them that little bit further and actually put it into law. So
Debbie,
I think they're extremists. So I think this is what their end game is. They want to go out to other countries. They want to promote anti-LGBTQ. They want to promote pro-family. Are they doing this to keep the US to do that? Because they're from the US, just to keep this superpower, or or you know what I mean? And so that all countries will be the same as America. So, and I'm thinking, how is this going to manifest now into Trump being the head of the UN? Because remember, when we looked at the UN, we said that's supposed to be impartial. There's nobody who's supposed to be ultimately in control of it. All countries work together. So how is Trump now? I'm just saying Trump. Even though they've got this world organization doing this work here, and I think it's for a purpose. Is this how he's going to now gain the country's influence and making him the head of the UN? I mean, because this is going to be the next thing. He's going to, when he gets in president, he likes power. How is he now going to force that when they've signed this charter to say nobody's in control of this? All the countries are, and the person who they make the head of it is elected. So how is Trump going to bypass that now and say, right, listen, I'm the head of the UN now, and you're going to follow our policies? How's that going to take place? And that's why in this presentation today, that's why I spoke about the UN. I wanted to know how this was all going to come together. Anybody have any questions?
well, these 10 kings which have no kingdom shall reign with the USA 1 hour with power.
Okay, so we're just going to I'm just going to play this. Basically, I was interested in finding out. Somebody asked him the question and said, Trump, if you're going to win, if you're not going to win, how how's that? What are you going to do? How are you going to how's that going to make you feel? So I want you to listen to this and then make your minds up about it.
5, 6, 7, 8. There's something that I should talk to you about.
Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? If you don't respond, you could be held in contempt of the court.
What are we gonna do?
You think you're God's gift to this hospital? You're just another doctor. Welcome back.
Stream the new season of Grey's Anatomy now, exclusively on Disney+.
New piece in Politico magazine entitled "The Very Real Scenario Where Trump Loses and Takes Power Anyway" breaks down what could happen next month if Donald Trump doesn't win. It reads in part, quote, "What Trump will do first is what he's already done, stoking deep, unfounded doubts about the integrity of the election. Trump has spent weeks promoting unsupported claims of mass voter fraud by Democrats, suggesting they're illegally registering thousands of non-citizens to vote and soliciting unlawful votes from foreigners." Joining us now, one of the authors of that piece, senior legal affairs reporter at Politico, Kyle Cheney. Kyle, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us more about the potential for that to happen?
Sure. So what we wanted to look at was, look, this is not 2020. Donald Trump is not president. His path to subvert an election that he loses is very different this time around than it was 4 years ago. And so we wanted to sort of talk to everyone we possibly could to say, is there actually a path if Donald Trump loses for him to try to take power? And what we learned was essentially the answer is yes. It would be way more extreme, way more, and require way more help from Republicans in power in elected office in state legislatures and in Congress. But it's there. And to a person, everyone thought if Trump actually loses on election night, number one, he doesn't acknowledge it. In fact, if anything, he declares victory. And number two, he's more motivated than ever because he knows if he doesn't prevail in this election, he's got an avalanche of criminal cases waiting for him on the other side of that. So in that scenario where he loses, people do expect him to at least press on all these levers that he can, which again are fewer in number, but still there.
Kyle, that's a great point. It's sort of been lost to the news cycle that Donald Trump stands to be criminally sentenced in just a couple of weeks here in New York. And then obviously, were he to lose, the federal investigations could be revived. But let's talk about this, your story here, so important. And glad it's gotten a lot of attention in recent days. What are some steps that are already underway? Like, how has this path already begun for Trump with Republican help where he could try to steal it?
Sure. I mean, this is actually one area that's similar to 2020. It was this idea that you have to convince as many people as possible, especially on his side, that the election is you can't trust the results of the election. The election integrity is in doubt. And so that is actually of a piece with what we saw in 2020. But the idea is, I think someone mentioned the word permission structure earlier in a different context. Create a permission structure for Republicans who are in power, who do hold those levers currently where Trump does not, to take steps that they might not ordinarily take. Things like have state legislatures appoint alternate electors, or have members of Congress, resist binding themselves to federal election laws that would normally prevent the sort of accepting alternate slates of electors. And so I think the precondition is convince as many people as possible that you can't trust the results, and everything flows from there.
Yeah, Kyle Maragay here with the New York Times. Wondering if you have any sense of the actual individual people who would be required to actually be complicit with Donald Trump in this kind of a scheme. Obviously, it's a wide-ranging group of people, but 4 years ago, it was people in those positions who really stood up to the former president. Can we expect the same? How do you see that?
Well, what makes this so hard, what made this story very hard to report, is certainly it's been well known that a lot of the people who did stand in Donald Trump's way 4 years ago, they're gone. They've retired. They've been defeated. There's people at county election boards, state election boards who are much more compliant and willing to sort of be aligned with Donald Trump. They may not be the key people that matter. To be honest, the one that matters the most is the speaker, and that's Speaker Johnson at the moment. But a lot of this plays out after the election, after the new Congress takes place. The next January 6th will be with the next Congress, and if Democrats take the House, Donald Trump's paths to overturning an election he loses are pretty much closed. He needs Congress to step in on that at that January 6th session to try to subvert any election that he loses. And so we don't actually know. It's very hard to prepare for this because you don't know, are Republicans going to hold the House? Are they going to expand their margin? And again, if Democrats take the House, this pretty much is a moot point.
Senior legal affairs reporter at Politico. Kyle Cheney, thank you so much for your reporting this morning. We appreciate it. Rev,
And that's it. Okay. So we're gonna. Does anybody have any questions? What do they think about that that little bit of clip there? Hello.
I
Right. Yeah.
If Trump is gonna wait until, say, he loses, if he's gonna
Yeah.
wait until January 6th, I think that'll be too late for him to do anything. I think if he's gonna do something, there's gonna be delay in announcing some result in some key state, like Pence. It's called Pennsylvania, the one that's got the largest college electors. Yeah, there could be delays in announcing votes in such kind of areas, maybe one or two, and they'll try to do something in those particular colleges, those two colleges, so that they get the number of electors. You remember what happened in 2001 when Bush won? They only needed to tamper with elections from just one college, a big one, like I believe Pennsylvania. That one would have a very huge impact on the result. Since on the other districts, they are cutthroat. There are people who have decided to vote for Kamala, and they will not change. And there are those that decided to vote for Trump, and they're not going to change. But the swing states are the ones that are tricky. So,
Yeah.
so I see a scenario whereby Trump is going to hold on to, maybe try to convince some people in that particular state to hold on to the election result and see how it is going. Then they challenge the results in that particular area so that they get to win that particular state, and then it gets to the White House. You see, so maybe a delay. This election is definitely not going to be normal.
I'm telling you. I said to myself, we're sort of waiting with bated breath to see what's going to take place, because I tell you something, if he loses, it's not just him picking up a fuss. I think the people kick up a fuss. I think it'll be awful. But also we're going to see, civil war going on. I mean, it's going to really, I think it'd be easier for him to get in than not for him not to be in. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think it'll be very similar to what he did the last time when he lost.
But I think it's going to be worse. I think it will be worse.
Yeah. It definitely will be worse.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be worse. And that's why we're waiting with bated breath. It's definitely going to be worse, because the people are just going to, oh gosh, I can't imagine. But I definitely think it's going to be worse. And that's why I say, even though it's not, advantage for him to be in, I think it'll be easier for it to be in than for him to not to be in. That's what I'm saying anyway.
I think Trump has got something. I was reading the other day where he said it's his honesty about things and I don't know whether it's honesty that people like him so much.
Yeah.
I mean, he tells rude jokes about men. He's just. I really, I mean, looking at him from afar, I don't know how the Americans got enticed. Probably his personality, probably his honesty to a certain extent.
I think it's that, CJ. His sort of personality's got something to do with it anyway. Yeah, definitely. And I heard somebody in the background. Has anybody got anything else?
Yes, yeah, it's Melania.
Hi, Melania.
Yeah. So from the study that we're just doing now, Debbie.
Yeah.
With how I'm understanding it, it's so obvious that we want Trump to win, so that everything that we've been teaching is going to come out true. We want to, in a way, we are sticking to that argument, so that
I don't think it's we want him to be in, but I think it's more to do with
Let me explain myself on what I mean.
Yeah,
by
sorry.
that.
Yeah, let me explain. Yeah.
Yes. So what I mean by that is, For us, for this movement, if Harris wins this election, that's a mess for us, because we are going to gather up now information to try and explain how this come to be, because we have been preaching all this while that Trump is going to win so that the Sunday law will come, right? So what I can safely say is everyone in the movement, for the lines to be true in courts, Trump needs to win that election.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah. Then the other thing that I've noticed from this study is what Trump is like, listening from these audios and videos that we've been putting for Trump, it seems that if Trump doesn't win this election and Harris gets into power, I heard the tone saying that maybe there are so maybes. Maybe Trump is going to do this. Maybe Trump is going to do something dubious so that he can get into power somehow. So my question is, everything that we do, we are guided by the lines. If you go back to the lines of the revolutions, when we get to the Sunday law, we don't need to speculate. Is there evidence that there's going to be some dubious activities done by the Republicans so that they can get into power? Or is there evidence that there's going to be sort of like a civil war in America so that Trump is going to get into power? Or is something that we are just fluctuating on like speculating on the evidence and say, maybe this is going to happen. And for me, which is not safe to do, we can't speculate on prophecy, on reality.
Yeah, I'm putting it out there what people are thinking, basically. I'm putting out there what they're thinking. We know what with this, we know what the situation is. He's supposed to get in. All these laws and oppressions are supposed to get in. And I'm just putting out there what people are thinking and what Erasia's thinking. And that's why, looking at these things, what are people thinking? We know what we're thinking, but what are they thinking? But I think that the things that they're thinking at the moment is a bit similar to us in the fact that obviously that he's not going to stand for not getting in. I'm just talking about what this election is going to look like, what people are thinking, what they some of them know that's going to happen, but we know the stand on it. So it was basically just to sort of bring that out to light, really.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but thank you for that, man. You are correct in saying that we know what's going to happen and all the rest of it. So yeah, but I just wanted to see, what I don't know if there's going to, well, there will be civil war. I think there will be. Yeah, but thank you for that. Does anybody else have any questions before we end this presentation today?
Hi, Debbie.
Yes.
I'm just thinking that if we go by Elder Terry's logic, that the sun is already a done deal.
It is.
It therefore means that Trump is gonna win. He's gonna get in there somehow.
Yes,
but,
and that's what I'm trying to bring out. Yeah, by looking at this. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is the thing. We don't want to divorce ourselves from reality, because
No.
like you've spoken about Richmond, the one who predicts American elections.
No, I was saying that. I mean, I'm not taking his thing as gospel. I was just saying this is what people are talking about out there. That's what this was about. What they're saying out there.
Yes, and also the polls are saying Harris will win. So the thing is, we don't know what it's going to look like. The Trump win, how is going to come out, because it looks like, I don't know. Well, it's so confusing to me, because the thing is, every news media is saying no, it's going to be a Harris win. Some are saying it's cutthroat, but mainly Harris, you see that she's winning by +1 or +2, something like that.
Yes, it's to do with the states, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So in as much we know that Trump is going to get the election, is going to win, but it brings us to want to think on how if Trump was going to be going against Biden, it was going to be a lot easier.
And that's why he wanted to. That he even said it. He said he didn't want to go. He said he didn't want to go against Kamala. He wanted Biden back.
You see now. So it's become very difficult when you look at what's happening on the ground and what the lines say.
Yes.
begin to analyze even the news, the reporters, also they do analyze to say they don't see Harris getting into power. Polls seem to be suggesting that she will, and hence analyze and say what could Trump do in the event that he loses. You see, because for them it doesn't look real that Trump would just back up and say, "Oh well, I've lost. Kamala, you can."
Yes, he's not going to, basically. No, definitely not.
Yeah, which is what the
Definitely
real
not.
lines say, because the real lines say that at the Sunday law we see
Yes, it's always
Teta.
back to the lines. Definitely, I agree.
Yeah,
Yes, I do agree with that. Definitely.
yeah. All right.
Simba, thank you, Ignatius. We've got to wrap up soon because it's getting after 12 o'clock now. So Simba, I think you've got your hand up. Was it Simba who had his hand up, or Melania?
Yeah, it was Melania. Hi, Didi.
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
my phone just went flat. My battery went flat. So I had to join it.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I wanted to comment on the previous explanation that Ignatius gave about
Yes.
Elder Terry's presentation.
Yeah.
That Elder Terry's presentation is kind of like pointing that Trump is going to win.
Yes.
For me, how I see it, I think it doesn't show that. That's how I see it. Why am I saying so? It's because Elder Terry, what she's done for me is she has just given how she understands the Sunday law to be like, and gave some dates and gave some evidence to back up what she has studied concerning that. So in a way, she has avoided the issue of the prediction, the election prediction.
She
Because
has,
for
Melania, I
her,
think. Yeah.
it's not about the election, winning or losing the election, like the main election. Because for her, it's like the Sunday law is already there. Whether Trump wins or Harris wins, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect anything because we are already in the Sunday law.
Yeah, but that's isn't what she said, Melania.
Sorry?
That isn't what she said. She did say, she said that when you, I think it was either the first one or the second, I can't remember really which one it was, but she did say about the voting. She said, well, like you said, that Trump's going to get in, and she said it's already intimating by the votes that he's going to get in. That's what she said, because the votes they've already said. I remember her saying something like that. They've already said that he's going to get in.
Yes, I don't dispute that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying
she did
is,
say that.
here pointing out that the Sunday law is already happened on July 21.
Yes.
Right. Whether Trump loses or wins doesn't change anything because the Sunday law is already
exactly.
Right. It's unlike what we are saying. What we, at the moment, what most of us believe is the election itself is the one that is going to point to the Sunday law. But for Elder Terry, in this presentation, the Sunday law is already there. So the election, whether he loses or wins, is not going to affect anything. So what I'm saying is, in this instance, Elder Terry seems to be on the safe side, if I may say, in court. Like, the prediction of the election doesn't affect anything.
No.
In a way, if you get what I'm trying to say.
No.
Yeah. So it's going to be our issue, like to try and explain when Trump loses. But for Elder Terry, I don't think it's an issue. It's not supposed to explain anything. Because for her, the Sunday law is already
because she based
passed.
it on the voting, didn't she? Yeah.
Yes. So that's what I'm pointing. And I was just thinking when we were doing this study, that for me, how I see it, whether Harris wins or Trump wins, for me, I don't see it as an issue. And I'm going to explain why.
Yeah.
Remember, when the studies about Trumpism were studied when he was in power the first term, we learned that Trump has put something in the system, like systems in place, like in the courts, in the judiciary, that are hard for another president to change, right? So Trumpism is already in the system of the American judiciary. So whether Harris wins the election, for me, it doesn't going to change anything because I don't see the US Constitution being changed anytime soon. Because what she needs to do, even if she's advocating for the good things, for the good values, what we are about as a movement, it's not going to change the laws, because it takes a lot of hard work and time for the people to be able to change the law and put it as a law to say, okay, now abortion is regarded as something which can be done legally for everyone in America. So, all the processes of getting to pass a law into a proposal into law. So even if Harris gets into power, it doesn't change anything for me. What it can only change, in my opinion, is maybe it's going to delay the not the Sunday effect. Wait, it's going to delay the activities, the last events of the Earth's history. They're going to be delayed a bit when Harris gets into power. But when Trump gets into power, bang, is going to change whatever. If he wants to go on with this and that and that and that, it will be very swift, because that is what he's standing for. But Harris is a whole lot of work to do, because the system is corrupt on itself. So she can't change the system.
No, okay then. Lovely.
That's
Thank you
my
very much,
opinion.
Tanya. Thank you everybody who's the thing is, because it's time's getting on now, we're gonna have to end it because it's nearly 12:30. So what we'll do, we'll have a word of prayer. Thank you for coming there today and for your contribution. So can you kneel where possible? Dear Holy God, as we humbly come before your throne of grace today, we thank you so much, Lord, for the presentation today, the participation, and the things that we've got out of it today. So thank you for being with us, Lord. Thank you for the precious Sabbath that we can spend with you. And we're going to end our presentation now, Lord, and thank you for the rest of the day. For we give you thanks and praise in and through our beloved Saviour, always to your great honor and glory. Amen.
Amen. And thank you, Debbie.